Hi, it's Kevin Bates here, and in the previous video I talked a bit about a particular case where the Bitcoin devs and some of the major mining pools stepped in to fix a serious fork in BitChain, and talked a bit about decentralization and centralization. And I think one of the things I notice in the blockchain space is that people talk about this wonderful decentralized world without fully comprehending what centralization or decentralization is all about. And in particular, it's not about every single person having the same influence as everybody else. There are groups within blockchain that have very particular aims, and those aims may conflict. And the idea is that the blockchain consensus system somehow pulls it all together, and it doesn't always work. Now, we have analogies in the world around us. For example, the way that the UK or the US government works, that you have checks and balances. In the UK you have Parliament, you have the Cabinet or the government, and you have the Queen with a sort of veto power, and similarly in the US with the House of Representatives and Congress and the President. And we see the same structure in companies. You know, shareholders, they put up money to fund a company, and they expect profits, but they are generally fairly hands-off unless they're trying to overthrow the board. Then you have the board, which sets the direction of the company, the executive who execute on the board's decisions, and the employees who actually do the grunt work. So all these different parties have different aims and different expectations, and sometimes they're in conflict, sometimes they work well together. Now, exactly the same thing is happening in the decentralized world of blockchain. If you take, for example, Bitcoin, you have the Bitcoin devs who are directing the code base and have a lot of sort of day-to-day, I suppose, influence on what happens. You have the miners who are securing the network, and then you have the users of the network who are sending transactions or choosing not to and voting with their feet. One of the big differences in the blockchain world is that, unlike in the world of government or the world of companies, it's very easy for a breakaway group to form and go off and try and pursue their own project. And this has an upside if there are some intransigent devs in the team, for example. They can be worked around. The downside is that you get a lot of dilution in blockchain, where you just get fork after fork, and the teams, if they can't get on well together, split up, and suddenly, instead of having one nice big reliable blockchain, you have a lot of smaller ones and a bunch of confused miners not really knowing which one they should go with. So the question in centralization versus decentralization isn't, as I said, about empowering every single person to the same extent. It's about building a system of checks and balances whereby there's not one particular group with a particular interest that dominates sort of over all the other ones. And the idea there is that you end up with the best general service for the society as a whole. I find this aspect of governance in blockchain quite interesting, because it is what moves blockchain away from being in the world of centralization, which is effectively a dictatorship where a company owns a database and controls who can do what with the data in it, to this more open system where you have these checks and balances. I hope you found that interesting. I'm probably going to revisit this topic again sometime soon, looking at some specific issues, but bye for now.